Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are Yerushalmi Berachos Daf Gimel and the Oz print, and we're going to talk about Lo Bada and Terumasan and Terumaso, which we have today. But first, let me go through a quick idea on the Yerushalmi itself. Every day, I'm going to try to present something interesting about the Yerushalmi, about learning Yerushalmi, historical and halachic, and other backgrounds that are important to know, and then something on the page itself. The Tosefta is a formation of many of the brises that we said. And again, the more you learn with Tosefta, the better. And it's something that is really, really important to go through. If you want to look at Tosefta, you could take a look at the back of Vilna Shas. There's at the end of every Masechta, there's Tosefta. There's actually, I believe, only 4 Masechtas that don't have Tosefta on it, but we'll talk about that at a different time. But it usually follows the Mishnayos. And those brises are very frequently quoted in the Gemara itself, under Tanya, usually. And in the Yerushalmi, all the time, there's a certain reliance that you know with Tosefta. And the more you know it, the better. Obviously, the more you know the Mishnayos as well, the more you'll understand the Tosefta. And the Medrash Rabbah, which, again, as I mentioned, was probably written or at least compiled by Rav Yochanan, is, of course, where much of the Agadata of the Yerushalmi comes from. Rav Yochanan was very, very prolific in many of the things that he wrote. Not for now, for a different time. There's a Gra, which is quoted in Mishnah Sagra. It's located in a few places, but he brings it all together at the beginning of Mishnah's regular Yachon Boaz print. So he says that Rav Yochanan wrote the Medrash Rabbah. By the way, there is an opinion in Sefer Yuchsin that says that it was Rav Oshia. There probably was some influence by both either way. But anyway, he writes that Rav Yochanan wrote Yerushalmi. It was very brief, like we mentioned, Lashon Kalila. And he assumes that you already know the Tosefta and are keeping that in mind. He also says that the erech, the value of the Midrashim compared to Medrash Rabbah, that Medrash Rabbah is the pinnacle of Midrashim, so to speak. It's like the value of Tosefta and Brisos compared to the Mishnah, that like the Mishnah is the final word, so to speak. So just think about that. I heard from Rav Tzember Zatzal that he one time said, I forgot who he was quoting, but Mukubalim, that the Arizal was Megala, the Sodos of the Zohar. And those who understand it, that's to them tremendous knowledge. But the Sodos of Medrash Rabbah have not been Nisgala yet, and we'll have to wait till Mashiach for that to be expressed. My understanding of that is that obviously there's a lot of esoteric hints to the Midrashim. You learn through Midrashim beginning of Berachos, you'll see what came first, the Shemayim and Arts. Obviously there's very, very lofty things being discussed there, but there's tremendous Mashalim there that are just really, really powerful. And we'll come across a lot of stuff in the Yerushalmi where it'll just quote kind of a story, and usually the source where it's missing or the details that are not fully extrapolated are found in Medrash Rabbah, which is why you'll find a lot of overlap between the Mefarshim in the Medrash Rabbah, like the Yefei Torah and others that'll quote a lot from Yerushalmi because they're filling in Divrei Torah Nim Makam Echad, Ashir Makam Acher. All right, let's get to our page. So I'm going to talk about 2 specific things today. On Daf Gimel and Beis, the Gemara is talking about what Bein Hashmashos is. It's a big machlokas, what it is, when it is. So one opinion, I'm not going to go through who, what, where, but it basically just says that a man stands at the top of Har Carmel. He's a Kohen that's Tameh, and he goes down the mountain, and the Yord V'Tov, and he goes down, he goes to the mikvah, B'Yam HaGadol in the Mediterranean Sea, which is at the base of this mountain, and then he comes back up, V'Ochel B'Trumaso. And look at that expression. He eats his truma. We'll get to that in a second. And you could assume that he made it to the mikvah in time, and etc. That's what the Gemara says. But then it says, the Gemara clarifies that that's only if he went through the shortcut. Apparently, this is a well-known shortcut. But if he didn't, and he went by way of the highway, of the regular roads, then lo bida, or lo bada. Okay, so let's talk about that word. So this is a Yerushalmi word that comes up all the time. The simple translation of the word lo bida is you always take this dalet and turn it into a zayin. So it's lo bezeh. And that's what the Charedim says. And that's what a lot of the Mefarshim say, the Pnei Moshe as well. They both say clearly lo bezeh. Very simple. That's what the word means. If you rely on that, you're going to understand it. If you look at the Rosh Srilio, he seems to have a different way of translating it. He says lo amrinan. We don't say. So he's translating it as dibor. Now, I always thought that it had something to do with the word badoi, which means liar. But I couldn't figure out how that would make sense because lo bada it is not true. It means to say it's not true. It doesn't apply. But suffice it to say, if you go with a simple translation of lo b'da, not with this, you're going to be in safe hands. Now I want to talk about truma. So his truma. Why is there a possessiveness? Now, if you look back to the Mishnah itself says misha shakon lecho b'truma son. So why does it say their truma? There's again this possessiveness. So this is actually the tzlach's kasha in Bavli, and she has just said lecho b'truma. The kohanim eat truma. So why does it say truma son? So tzlach says that normally the halacha is that a person is not allowed to eat anything until they say Kriya Shema, Shel Shachris, or Arvis. Not allowed to eat at night once it gets dark. So he says, but in this case, since the Truma is their specific mitzvah. It belongs to them, so to speak, to Kahuna. So therefore, the Kohanim are allowed to actually eat, and that's why it says Terumasan. It's their Truma, so it's stressing that at this time when they eat is when you could say Shema. Otherwise, it sounds weird if they're saying if they're eating then, and what about their Shema? The Torah says that they're actually allowed to eat before Shema. It's their mitzvah. The Ben Yoyada, the Ben Ishchai, who hopefully we'll talk about a lot, he actually asks. He brings down Mitzlach, but then he says, what's the pshat? Why are you allowed to eat it? So he gives a few different answers. He says that any mitzvah, the more specific it is given to that specific person and to fewer people, is more chaviv. Think about Pidyon Haben. It's very few people that could do it. Pidyon Petach Hamar, there's a certain simcha that it's only for that people. So therefore, we're not afraid that since it's so dear, we allow him to eat it early. And before they say Shema, we're not afraid they're going to forget Shema either, which is obviously a mitzvah for everybody. And so since it's by the way, you could also say that Kohanim was reason and they're more careful, and that's why. But again, the Terumasan, there's a certain possessiveness there. The Gra in Imre Noam says that this is totally wrong. He says actually the Kohanim are not allowed to eat beforehand. And the Marsha says the exact same thing, that they're not allowed to eat it. And that's not what it means. It just means at that time, and they waited and they said Shema first. But the question is, so then why does it say Terumasan then, according to them? So Matos Yantiv tries to give two different answers. You can take a look there. I'll say over them quickly, although there's a lot to be expressed here. He says that that there's a Gemara later in Berachos that says, the Bavli says, that one of the Zmanim brought down is that the time Shebnei Adam Nechasan Lechol Pitan, to eat their bread. What does that mean? The Gemara was talking about the fact that they didn't have to that time period didn't get delayed because it was all ready to be eaten. So Terumasan means that there was no delay because they're ready to eat it right away, and there's a mitzvah to eat it right away. Okay, so that's why Terumasan is said. Or he says another pshat is that it's going on the pasuk. The pasuk describes Truma as kilach mohem. It's his, and this is where I want to talk a little bit more about that. Okay, the Gra brought down in Pneumin Shulchan Agra in the Tafshin Samaches Madura, page Shinvav. So he says a davar nifla that's amazing. He says that the word Truma comes from a contraction based on the Rambam of Trei Mimea. It's 2 out of 100. That's the shear that Chazal bring down, that the Beinoni, the average person, gives about 1/50th. That's what Truma is. Now, 1 second. Trei Mimea is 2 out of 100, which I get mathematically. 2 out of 100 is the same thing as 1 out of 50. But then, why are you saying that? Why are you saying 2 out of 100? Just say 1 out of 50. Why? But Terumasan is Trei Mimea. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, I skipped ahead. Truma is Trei Mimea. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. So says the Gra, the first pasuk of Shema and Baruch Shem has 49 letters. So where's the 50? What's the 50th thing? The 50th thing is the kavanah that you have when you say Shema, that you're makabel omach hashemayim and you're connecting to Hashem. So therefore, that's the 1 out of 50, 1/50th of Truma. That is that when you say Shema, it's good to be makabel omach hashemayim, Shema Yisrael Hashem Hashem Echad, Baruch Shem Hosei Leved, right? But then the ikr thing, the 1/50 of the Truma la Hashem, is your kavanah that you have. Okay, which is an amazing thing, and the kavanah is to be moser nefesh. Take a look at Derech Hashem Chelik Daled, Parak Daled. You'll see he says this exact same thing. Again, a contemporary of the Gra and someone the Gra respected about the being moser nefesh when you say Shema. Okay, so why is it Trei Mimea? Why 2 out of 100 and not 1/50th? So it's because we say Shema twice. So there's 2 times during the day that you do it. So that's the pshat. So Terumasan, says the Gra, is Trumas Nun. It's the Truma of Nun, which is the highest level, the 50th, the kavanah that you're giving to Hashem. So that, maybe the Marsha would say like that, because he holds that you can't eat ahead of time, and the Gra himself also says you can't eat ahead of time. The Ben Yoyada brings down one last thing, which is very fascinating. Kim b'Torah Hashem chefzo, he wants to learn Hashem's Torah, pasuk in Tehillim, Parak Aleph, v'Torah yege yom v'layla. Torah Hashem is Torah Shebachsav, and Torah so, what's your Torah? It's Torah Shebal Peh. That's the amol that you put in. So that's Terumasan. It belongs to you. That's your mitzvah. It belongs to you. And that's how we learn Torah. We make it ours. So that could be the pshat on our page also. It's Truma so. It has to be his. And that mitzvah is something that he's very, very excited about. We should all be zochet to make Torah ours and to connect to the Torah.